Now, this was the Hunger Games movie that the fans felt. Now, this was the Hunger Games movie where the fans felt like this franchise was on fire. Oh shit, my butt has really caught fire. Katniss, get some water, somebody. The Hunger Games Catching Fire, not directed by Gary Ross this time, but by Francis Lawrence, and is the second installment in the Hunger Games quadrilogy. So, Catching Fire tells the story taking place after the events of its predecessor, where Katniss is still recovering from the PTSD and sheer trauma that she went through the in her first Hunger Games, and then President Snow of the capital strongly dislikes her, and because the people all love her, and he sees her as the biggest threat, so who could overthrow him. Uh, so Katniss is forced in back into the Hunger Games once again with peace, as Snow asserts his dominance with an iron fist, and after her second games, Katniss wakes up to find a shocking discovery. Now, Catching Fire has been hailed by the Hunger Games fandom as the Empire Strikes Back of this series. Heck, it has a whopping 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. So the critics said this was just 10% away from being a perfect movie. It's certainly one of the best reviewed movies from 2013. Uh, uh, but I've never exactly been in the camp who have thought this as the fan favorite Hunger Games movie. I've always seen this one as just a tad over races, but I still microscopically favor the first Hunger Games, but Catching Fire is still clearly the best of the sequels. That's a no-brainer. I mean, and was the last good Hunger Games movie that we ever received, and this movie does some things better than the first, and some things worse. For starters, we have a change of director, and Francis Lawrence does such a pretty solid job of continuing from what Gary Ross set up, as he does attempt to make this a bigger movie that does raise the stakes, but there is an element of repetition to this story. With Katniss and Peter going into the games again, and them and us being forced to sit through, Katniss and Peter interviews and their fame, in the build up to the games. You could just title those scenes the hunger filler. Uh, uh, but uh, but this but this movie is still far from the most boring installment of the franchise. As like the first movie, the first and third acts are its highlights. I mean, uh, particularly in the first act when we finally see Snow confront Katniss, and Snow has far more story presence here than he ever did in the first, and we actually get to know him as the villain personally, and this monster will literally decimate Katniss and anybody who threatens his rule. There is there's no doubt about it. He is a dick, though his granddaughter is rather adorable. I'm sure she will go on to be the capital leader that her grandfather should have been, and and even Gale gets greatly expanded on. That's why I forgot to talk about him in the first movie. But yeah, there is more of a love triangle here of which boyfriend is Katniss going to go for, Gale or Peter. And when Gale is whipped and tortured by this by the Capitol Police, who look like stormtroopers from Star Wars. Holy fuck, that was bloody dark, and Jennifer Lawrence is once again beyond a badass in her return as Katniss Everdeen, and her outfit, so her black and white one in this movie, is one of my personal favorites. It is elegant. She also gets to wear some fiery dresses. I mean, particularly when she's being interviewed by Stanley Tucci's character, who also gets more in the spotlight here than he did in the first. And she totally razzle dazzles the audience as she slays in her dress that can, well, catch fire at her will. And though the entire thing about her faking that she was pregnant with Peter's baby just for good publicity, I'm like, I could not care less. Can you just talk more about your sister Prim, who misses you greatly, and less about Peter? And if you thought I talked little about Peter in my review of the first film, there's even less to talk about with him here, because as I want to love Peter, but he's just bland as can be as a love interest. Though Epidine and Hamish feel more like parents to Katniss and Peter, even more so now, as well, or they've been with them through 2 games now. And my personal favorite moment in the movie is the elevator scene when this young lady gets in the lift with our heroes, and she literally strips nude just so randomly. I am so baffled we never got a nude scene with Katniss in these movies, but then I guess they're not quite going for a 15 rating, and there's no sex in the books. And the games are just like the first film here in the third act, or a rollicking ride, just chocked full of perils, like from the mist that turns out poisonous to the mandrill monkeys that can ambush you. It's like literally an army of Rafikis ganging up on them. And these games take place in more of a jungle than a forest this time, so it doesn't feel like exactly the same games as the first. And when Katniss fires the arrow through the force field, I mean, that is one of her most awe-inspiring moments in this franchise, you and you can see they have upped the camera work and the CGI from the first film. Thankfully, they shut the shaky cam out of the window here. And when Katniss wakes up and she hears about her home District 12 being, well, decimated by snow, I mean, that to me was not nearly as strongly handled as it could have been, and comes off as an anti-climax because, well, this is a movie, not a book, and the movie seems to forget that. We need to see that, not be told it by a character. Sadly, from this point on, the movies would only get more and more exposition heavy. But overall, catching a fire may not be on fire as much as the majority say for me, but it's a still only follow-up that actually respects the first one, in my honest opinion. I give Catching Fire 3 stars out of 5. Good movie. So now that we've reviewed the only good Hunger Games sequel, the final 2 movies are not gonna be the easiest to sit through. Oh, fuck. Well, I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. And what are your thoughts on Catching Fire? Are you with the majority and say it's the best Hunger Games movie, or are you in the minority like me and say it's not the greatest, but close? Please comment and let me know. Please like this video and subscribe. Please follow on Twitter and Instagram. And I'll see you next time when I rant on Mockingjay Part 1. Why they didn't just make Mockingjay one movie I will never know. And remember, movies are us. Bye, guys.